Then I guess it's time that we cover more PragerU. They've got a video titled Who Really Has the Privilege? I've seen all of 10 seconds of it, so I'm going to be going in this about as blind as you guys are. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and go into the one area of reprieve that we likely will have before getting into the video, and that is, of course, the fan art section. So, before we get into any PragerU nonsense, first we have this piece from 666, the anime cat 666, which is a yandere version of my character. And thank you very much for that one. Let's move into the next one. We also have this one from Moonstar, which I don't remember the context to why this one was made, because I am still catching up on all the fan art, and this was made over 3 months ago. But thank you very much for it nonetheless. And finally, we have one from Some Scribbles and Whatnot. They said that they had just started doing digital art for the first time when they made this video. And honestly, I think, not video, but when they made this piece, and honestly, I think they did a great job on it. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions, and as always, remember, if you want to submit fan art, the best way to do so is dropping it into the fan art section of the Discord. Any other places, like Twitter or emails or anything like that, will likely get lost in the ether when I am getting things in. Whereas if it's on the Discord, I'll be able to see it pretty much instantaneously, and I'll know when we are doing stuff. But, with all that said, let's go ahead and get right into the absolute brain hemorrhage that is PragerU.
Privilege. What's the obsession with privilege?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for the obsession with privilege. One is that there is a bit of socioeconomic benefit that is given to people, or not given to people, but that just people generally have, based entirely on what we would assume, or what we would call privilege most of the time. So, like, let's say we have white privilege. Generally speaking, people who are in majority race families tend to have more generational wealth, usually, whereas people who are in families that have been historically marginalized, people of color, for instance, have not had as much opportunity to generate generational wealth, so it does not tend to trickle down to the generations as they go. But those are just a couple reasons why. You asked the question.
It's driving me nuts. Not only didn't I have privilege, I don't even know how to spell it.
Okay. Well, thank you for admitting that you're really fucking stupid. I'm sorry. If you're going to just immediately come on to a video and just be like, hey all, I'm illiterate, then I'm just gonna have to answer with, okay? And? You could say that, oh no, I didn't have privilege, but largely, privilege is not something that you get to say you did or didn't have. Privilege is something that you default into. Like, for instance, let's say that you were born in a stable household. You had the privilege of having two parents in the same household. Whereas if you were born to a single-parent household, and you had to have, two Christmases and any of that stuff, you likely did not share the same privileges that having both parents likely would give you. Or, for instance, another thing that you could find is that if you are born into a household that has more wealth, that is a more privileged household, definitionally. Or let's say you are born into a white family. You likely won't have to deal with a lot of the racial profiling as you are growing up that people of color have to in their families. That's another form of privilege. These are generally pretty normal things.
I think there's a D in there somewhere, isn't there? If I told...
Oh my god. Continue.
you a story about a kid who grew up poor, product of divorce, did a lot of dumpster diving. Sister ran away at age 14.
Wait, hold on, I have a question. Why is the cartoon character black? Why is the cartoon character black? That's kind of weird. Isn't this supposed to, like, represent you?
Welfare and food stamps. If I told you that kid was black, you'd go, well, yeah, that's because of systemic racism. But if I told you that
Wait,
kid was me...
No. Nobody would say that somebody's on welfare because of systemic racism. There are other things that can be attributed to that. Actually, no. Let me rephrase that. Yes, it is likely that systemic racism could play a part in somebody having to deal with that kind of life, but not necessarily. This is where PragerU likes to do this thing where they take a very specific circumstance and try to argue that this is representative of the whole, even though it's not. I clicked the video. I want it to play, please.
You'd go, what?
No. I would ask why or how that happened. I wouldn't go, what? Like, let me just sort of that this way, okay? Maybe this will make more sense. As somebody who has recently touched grass and seen people in real reality, I know there are homeless white people. I know they exist. The end-all be-all to everything is not racism. Holy shit, terror will not shut up.
What are we doing? What happened to your privilege?
No, you don't know what white privilege means then, dude. White privilege just means that you would have a handful of benefits, like things like not being racially profiled as an example, that you did not earn. These are just privileges that you have merely by existing. White privilege does not automatically mean that you will always have a stable household or always have stable income. They just mean that you are more likely to have certain privileges, or you just guaranteed will have certain ones. Like, again, not being racially profiled. That's not something that generally happens to white people, and it's included in white privilege. I think this entire video is just going to be PragerU misunderstanding white privilege.
The real white privilege isn't privilege. It's knowing that nobody cares about you, good or bad.
So nobody cares about white people? I mean, I'm a white people, and there's at least 90 few people watching this video who care about me. At least I hope so. That might be 94 hate watchers. Who am I to say? I have no way of knowing.
No one's going to do anything for you because you're white, and no one's going to do anything against you because you're white.
Actually, it depends on who you are. So, let's say that I've got a racist fucking skinhead, okay? And this guy's got a lot of money, and he sees you walking on the street, and he sees a black person walking on the street, and he wants to just stick it to the black person. Because you're white, he might just hand you $100, or he might do something in your favor so that the person of color sees it. It's because you're white that you were gifted this privilege from a random KKK member. That's an extreme example. But again, I'm pretty sure what's going to be argued here, based on the structure of this, is that he's starting off with, well, being white just means you're the default. Which, I'm going to get into why that's a problem. But being black means that you'll get a month dedicated to you. There will be scholarships dedicated to you. And we'll get into why those ones are problematic as well. If the first one, which I'm assuming to be the case, is the angle that he's going to be arguing, where being white is the default, the mere fact that you can even have the position that being white is a default is, in and of itself, a privilege. Being the default is a privilege. Let's go.
I'll give you an example. When I get pulled over by a cop, I assume it's either because I was speeding or the cop's an overficious jerk. But either way, my skin color doesn't play in.
Right. Whereas, because your skin color does not factor into that, that's a demonstration of privilege. You had the privilege not to be racially profiled.
If I was black, I'm assuming that it was driving while black or that he was profiling me. Let me give you another example.
Wait, you're just gonna assume that, but you're not gonna, like, contextualize it further? I mean, I know you've only got 5 minutes, so, I mean, I guess you would just drop the point and then ignore past that.
Of the white privilege I'm talking about. The privilege of not obsessing over privilege.
That would be considered a privilege, I guess. Also, wait, hold on. Who obsesses over privilege? Now, I'm sure that there are extremists, right? Like Ghazi, for instance. Ghazi's a piece of human garbage, and I'm sure he obsesses over privilege a fuck ton when he's failing to make adequate payments on land in attempting to build a black ethno-state of all things. I know there are individuals who do obsess over privilege, but a lot of the people who are going to talk about white privilege on an academic level, which, I mean, if you're going to call yourself Prager University, I'm going to go ahead and bring academic levels into this. We're probably talking about sociologists, in which case it's probably their job. So, is there an issue with that?
I had a neighbor call the police on me during the day, during the middle of the week, when I was doing a construction project because our phone lines got crossed. So I picked up the phone to call Anawalt Lumber. My neighbor picked up the phone. I said, oh, sorry, I think our lines got crossed somehow. Next thing I know, a police cruiser rolled up to my home.
And what does that tell us? You had an incident, your neighbor thought that you hacked into his phone line, so he called the police on you. I mean, yeah, it's shitty, it sucks, but does white privilege mean that you'll never have the cops pulled on you? I've never seen somebody argue such a dumb point.
Now, if I was black, I would have no choice but to think that was racially motivated.
Yes, you would. Wait, hold on. Are you honestly going to tell me that if you're black, you have no choice in your thoughts? Now, maybe I'm just reading a little too far into this. Maybe I'm looking at this in all the wrong ways. But I feel like if the argument's going to be some form of I am not racist, maybe you shouldn't make the point that an entire race of people do not have control over their own thoughts. I'm just going to play it again just to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting what you literally just said.
Rolled up to my home. Now, if I was black, I would have no choice but to think that was racially motivated. I mean, why else would your neighbor call the cops on you because your phone lines got crossed, unless in fact you're black? And as
okay, so he did say that.
Matter of fact, I'm not even black, and I think it was a racist incident.
Wait, hold on. But didn't you just say you wouldn't think that? I'm confused. I'm confused what the messaging is here.
Get it? Whites do have privilege, but not the privilege the race hustlers are selling.
The race hustlers? What is a race hustler? I have to... Hold on. What the fuck is this term? I have to know. What is a race hustler? What is that? Urban Dictionary. A term coined to describe those individuals of a particular race who project themselves into the media spotlight as spokespersons whenever there's an alleged racial incident which involves race. The word hustler includes as a part of the term, implies that they exploit a racial situation to serve their own interest. Okay, I'd legitimately never heard of this term before. That's so weird.
I don't think people really drill down enough on this. I've had horrible things happen to me my entire life.
And everybody has horrible things happen to them on some level. What does that say about a well-established sociological principle?
I've had school teachers and counselors that were horrible. I've had construction foremen who treated me like crap. I've had program directors who treated me like crap.
And, again, what does this have to do with privilege? You're literally just like, oh yeah? Black people had to deal with racism? Well, I had a bad phone call once. I got fired from a job once. Cool. Bad stuff happened to you. Nobody denied that. It doesn't take away from a very well understood principle that's in a separate category.
And the good news is I'm white. So I just know they're a-holes, not racist.
Cool. Do you not see how that legitimately could be a manifestation of privilege? Like, okay, let's just take this logically for a second, right? Let's say that you're a person of color. And anytime, I'll use this for more than just that as a minority group to show my point. So you get fired from a job, and you have to wonder, on some level, is it because of my race? How many other people are at this job that are black? Are they being treated the same as me, or are they being treated differently? Is there a racial component to this? That's a thing that you don't generally have to consider that much if you're white, though actually sometimes you do. It can work the other way around. I've certainly been discriminated against at jobs by people specifically because I'm the one white guy in the room. It's happened. It was one of the McDonald's that I worked at a long time ago. I think when I was 18. Anyway, point is, that can happen. But let's take another minority group, right? Let's say that you're trans. Or let's say that you're gay. And your boss finds out you're gay or trans. And then a week or two later, you get fired. Let's say you're in an at-will state, so they fire you for literally anything. And you don't know if it was motivated by the fact that you were gay. You don't know if it was motivated by the fact that you were trans. You just know that there's a bit of proximity there that was really, really suspicious. It was almost sus, if you would say. Amogus meme. Now, this happens with a lot of minority groups. You don't know if the discrimination is happening to you because of something inherent to you, something you can't change. Generally speaking, though there are cases where it happens, generally speaking, if you're white, it's probably not going to be the fact that you're white that got in the way of a job opportunity or got in the way of some other economic factor. Generally speaking. Again, I'm not saying that these things don't happen. They do, and they can. But generally speaking, I don't have to take, was it because I'm white, into consideration. That's a privilege. That literally is just a privilege that I have as a white person. I don't see how that concept gets lost here.
Why do we want anyone worrying about someone else's privilege?
Because sociologists study people and groups? Why would we want people studying people in any capacity, I guess?
Who cares? This is America. You make your own breaks.
Not all the time.
Anyway, isn't the goal not to judge a person by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character?
But if the content of their character contains racism, then you necessarily have to consider the color of one's skin as a component. That becomes a necessary component of judging the content of their character, my guy.
I think I heard that somewhere. What's the guy's name? Marty? Anyway, privilege means you have it better than most, not that you have it better than some.
Wait a minute. So let's say that white people are in fact the majority in the country, which they are. Now, let's say that there is a minority group that is largely discriminated against because of the color of their skin, which we do. And let's say that an argument was made that, well, the white people have a modicum of privilege within this society because they don't have to deal with this kind of discrimination. They can go outside and they can look at other groups of other white people and they don't have to worry about, am I going to get discriminated against in X, Y, or Z situation? They have this privilege. They are privileged over the minority group. But based on this definition right here, this would never work. We could never argue that the majority group have privilege. Let's say that the minority group are literal slaves. Well, the white people don't have privilege over them. Privilege means they have it better than most, and most of them are also white people. Not better than some. I mean, only some of them are slaves. The white people can't be privileged over them. That would be so weird.
How about
this is a
tall
dumb
people?
argument.
Tall people have an advantage over short people. Thin people have an advantage over fat people. Attractive people, you're welcome, have an advantage over the homely. There are always going to be people lower than you on the totem pole, no matter what color your skin is.
Okay, and being this reductive about it doesn't help.
Wait a minute, are we allowed to say totem pole? I feel like that's racist.
I mean, it could be, but I think it's also just accepted as, normal nomenclature.
Every minority person living in the United States in 2021 is doing better than people living in the Congo, Bangladesh, or many other places around the world.
Okay, let me explain how stupid this argument is real quick. A Flipping Merit, thank you very much for the follow. Okay? Let me go and explain how stupid this argument is. I'm going to select somebody random in the chat. MUI Pikachu, you are part of my Police. Let me go ahead and point out that there are people in this chat who are not mods. So, you got it better than them. Despite the fact that you being a mod means I literally get to make fun of you with that name. No, let me take an actual argument, not just poking a mod in chat. An actual argument. Let's say that you are digging through a dumpster, right? That's the only way you get to survive. If you didn't have a dumpster right near you, you'd be dead right now. But you see, there are people in the Congo who might not have dumpsters around them and therefore might starve. So you've got it better than them, which means the random people who don't have to dig through dumpsters don't actually have any privilege over you. Because there are random other people who might have it worse. You don't know. You've never met any of these fucking people. I don't know why they're factoring into your conversation. What kind of argument is this? This is tu quoque. This is whataboutism. You don't have X bad. What about other person who has X worse? Well, quite frankly, the best answer when somebody engages in whataboutism is, what about them? Nothing about somebody else suffering makes my day any better or worse. My day just is how it is. And if my day's bad or my situation's bad, then it's bad. Let me maybe frame this in a way that's even more simple. So let's say that I stab myself on accident, right? I step on a nail. And now let's say that somebody 10 miles away from me stubs their toe. Or let's say they accidentally cut off the tip of their finger on a meat slicer. Whatever the situation is. Has their situation over there, where they have hurt themselves potentially more than me, had any real effect on my situation? No, it hasn't. It hasn't changed the fact that there are other people around me who might not have to deal with stepping on rusty nails. Them getting their finger sliced literally changes nothing about my day. It changes nothing about my situation. It's almost a non-factor in my life. Until dinguses like this guy over at PragerU actually try to bring it up in my life. Fuck dinguses like this over at PragerU. But we're going to keep playing the video from the dingus over at PragerU.
And if you don't believe me, then why they're all trying to get here?
What does that have to do with anything? People see America as a place where they have opportunity. There are people within America who deal with systemic racism regardless of the opportunities presented. America might be better than others. That does not mean America could not be better than it currently is. Moron.
Do the math. We're a systemically racist country that people are trying to kill themselves. They're literally risking their lives trying to get into the systemically racist country. Let's just...
Okay, so let me explain this very, very simply. It can be equally true that America has a systemic racist problem. And also true that some other country that somebody is in is worse for them to be in than America. These two things are not incongruent. It can be true that America has problems that need to be solved. Like, God, okay, let's take this down as there's two households, right? Household A is where you've grown up in. You have a physically abusive father, and you have a strung out mother, and you're not allowed to go to school because, well, you've got to support the family, and they're not going to let you go to school and get an education because they need you to engage in child labor. This is a terrible situation for somebody to be grown up in. Now, let's say that your friend offers you a home, right? And in their home, their father happens to be a drunk. Now, it can be true. Let's say that you get in that home, right? And it's true that this home is better than where you were. You can now go get an education. You now don't have to worry about getting beat when you're asleep. You now don't have to worry about random people knocking on your door trying to get your mom to pay for whatever she's gotten herself into this week. You don't have to worry about any of that. And the dad, who has an alcohol problem at the table, tries to argue that he doesn't have an alcohol problem, and it's not a problem for this house, because if it was such a problem for this house, then why would you try to be here? Why was it so important for you to be in this house? Well, you argue that this house is better and more stable for me than my last one. But it's also true that this house has problems that need resolving. Your rabid alcoholism is a detriment to the other people living in this house. It's a problem that still needs to be resolved. No amount of saying, I am better than the person down the street, absolves you of the problems that you're currently facing right now. Also, a Flipping Gamer YouTube and Trixie V have both followed. Thank you very much for the follows. But if you take this argument and you break it down into houses with parents with problems, then you find out how absurd the argument he's making is. Make no mistake, it's the same argument.
Say this country was a facility, and the facility was systemically racist, and every year people died trying to hop the fence and climb the wall to get into the facility?
Yeah. Let's say that the area on the other side of the wall is systemically racist, and also there are landmines on the ground. Well, this other place might be systemically racist, which means we have to deal with a bunch of socioeconomic problems, lack of education and the like, but there are not landmines. So we will go over the wall and not deal with the landmines. This argument is dumb. I don't want to spend more time on this argument.
People of color? Would that make sense? The great news is that if you're willing to bust your hump, there's no better country to do it in. So maybe we should stop obsessing on skin color or gender or sexual proclivities.
So let's go ahead and see why people would obsess about sexual proclivities and about gender. Let's say you live in an right to work state, like I do. And let's say that it is a very likely thing that you can get fired from a job for being trans or being gay, depending on how homophobic or bigoted or narrow-minded a potential employer could be. I mean, we already talked about this earlier in the video, but I'll go ahead and say it again because the point bears repeating. If it is a risk factor for you where you live, that you might not be able to get a job opportunity, or you might lose a job or opportunity because of your sexual proclivity or your gender, then there is good reason to focus on these things when looking at things through a sociological lens. If I'm studying groups of people from a socio-economic position, then I cannot just not factor, or as you say, not obsess over these factors that have a real impact on people's lives.
And get on with the hump busting. You know what would fix all this nonsense? A little gratitude.
Who do you need to have gratitude for? Please do not come in with the dumbass take. You should have gratitude to white people. I hope that's not going to be the position given here.
You got up this morning. You put your shoes on. Your fridge was full. You hugged your kids.
Wait, not everybody has this situation, though. People wake up not being able to tie their shoes because the laces are too worn out, not being able to find food in their fridge because they can't afford it. I love this, like, this fucking... This argument is resting on somebody having a stable position in life.
You said goodbye to your wife. You said hello to your girlfriend. Gratitude for living in the best country in the world at the best time to live in the best country in the world, whatever your skin color is.
Wait, hold on. So, again, it could be true that all of that is a factor, right? It could be true that this is the best country in the world. It could be true. All this nonsense could be true. And yet it would still be true that it could be better. And isn't it... Hold on. Isn't it a very capitalist position, which PragerU would agree with, to always be trying to better oneself or one's company, because you never know when the competition is going to come out from under you? You must always be improving? You can't just say, well, the company is fine. Have a little gratitude. No, they're going to say, pump up those numbers. We want more gains in the next fucking quarter. But again, PragerU is not about logic. They're about selling you comfortable bullshit.
There's no better country than the United States to call your home. I'm Adam Carolla.
Again, I don't know if there's no better country than the United States to call your home. From what I understand, I would probably rather call Canada or New Zealand my home. In some cases, outside of it being fucking Turf Island, I might even rather call the UK a home. Outside of all the other issues that have happened there recently. This have a little gratitude nonsense doesn't get us anywhere. It's a very thought-terminating cliche. Instead of thinking about the ways in which we can improve America for the people who live in America, people should just be grateful that they live in America. And just sit on that. Just not budge from that position. Well, I reject that. I would like to see America improve. I would like to say literally, or see literally any country that I live in improve from the position that it was in previously. I don't see any reason to not try to improve myself or my country or my home at all. And yes, this was Adam Carolla being very unfunny on PragerU. But with all that said, let me know what you thought in the comment section below, because PragerU always merits quite the conversation. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by hitting the like button, sharing with your friends, any of that other fun stuff. If you have not followed already over on YouTube, which Hellboy Son just did, thank you very much for the follow, Hellboy Son. If you have not followed already over on Twitch, please consider doing so. I am in the middle of a partner push right now. It would be greatly appreciated. But with all that said, everyone, thank you all for watching, and as always, insert end of video tagline here.